Inland will
Hey,
shrug his shoulders and say, "Well, sounds like we're going to come up with a plan and then think on our feet."
to this, Remai simply raises a hand and gives you a two-fingered wave as you leave the cockpit. All right.
Great.
So,
Um,
all right. So you are flying through space. It's been about 2 hours. You've each had a chance to sort of settle in and look over things. What is some things you guys would like to do before planning, or if there's any interactions you'd want to do, or something you want to ask?
Shiley was going to talk to Ajax.
Go ahead.
Okay.
Well, Ajax, as you may have seen, my master is no longer with us. He decided to go back to Manan to look for my sister.
Ajax nods.
But yesterday before he left, we discussed your condition, and I believe that I might be able to assist with it on my own.
That's good. How long will it take?
It's Ariana.
I'm sorry. To which journey?
How long will it take for me to do the healing for Ajax?
Oh, that depends. Your master said it would take quite a while. So you're thinking anywhere from maybe a week to two of intense healing.
Okay, so not just like one day. Okay.
No.
Okay.
That's of course dependent on your rolls, but that's the rough estimate.
Okay.
Well, it's a very complex and delicate procedure, and my master is under the impression that there may be some uh, emotional, non-physical damage as well, which will need to be addressed before the healing is complete. So it'll probably take several weeks to perform.
Okay. Well, I guess we'll attempt that whenever there's time. But thank you.
You're welcome.
We should probably, get together with everyone else and talk about a plan.
That sounds like a good idea.
Is there like a main like living space room, kind of like the Millennium Falcon would be, like some sort of like where that round thing in the center was on the ship, or?
All right, everyone, check your handouts. This is what you have gathered from your exploration of the ship and your talking with. You managed to all get sort of a map of the area. So, number 10 is the lounge port, and it's kind of it's a bit plainer in the picture, but it's made into a somewhat decent area, even though the landing pad is right there. Um, it's kind of where the corners are, where the rooms are. Imagine two different tables with some chairs and seating, with a kind of a small little dinner area there.
By the way, Picasso is still locked in his room. Like he tries to stop anyone from coming in. Like if there's a lock, it's locked.
Oh dear.
If not, then someone should tell me.
I thought there were bunks, but okay.
Oh, there are bunks.
Yeah. Number 8, the two 8 rooms by themselves. On
Okay, he's somewhere in the vents.
Okay. The room next to 7. That one is captain's quarters. That one is Ramai's, and you guys get the feeling he may not appreciate you entering it. However, the other two, the one next, the closest one is room 6. That is the boys, and the next one over is the girls.
Alright, so how are we going to go about doing this? I'm going to assume cargo bay since that'll probably be the easiest for him to get us into, but we can adjust as we need to. He may not be able to get us there, exactly there.
Well, it's more of a matter of strategy after that.
Of course. Do I wish to get to the bridge as quickly as possible to find this admiral that we need to take care of? Convince him to stop his nefarious plan to bombard the planet?
I guess we're going to assume that the Admiral will be on board the bridge. That may not be the case.
Well, if it's after they jump out of hyperspace, if they're in range of the planet, it's probably a safe bet. But he could be in his own quarters.
True. I'd almost expect him to be at the bridge just to oversee the battle and to admire his handiwork. It also depends on how much arrogance he has, and how much faith he has in his subordinates.
Well, I thought we were going to try to get to the fleet before they reach the planet.
Well, we can't get to it until it exits hyperspace, and it depends on if they need to make a stop before then.
There's that, and yeah, we can't board them during hyperspace. Might be a little tricky. Unless you know of a way to magically disappear from this particular ship and reappear over there, like a transporter or something.
Well, I could think of one way.
Yeah, I'm not trusting myself. Not with something like that to the Force. Nothing against you or anything, but no.
Where is Picaz anyway?
I couldn't find him. Remember, this is because if he doesn't want to be found, he's not gonna be found. So I figured he's probably off somewhere, sleeping or something. He seemed to be a wee bit tired earlier, but
I try to locate Picaz in the forest.
Stonewall is my is my response. Fail.
He's in the bunk room.
Well, I'm getting the feeling that Picaz is in our bunk room. Should we go get him and ask him to be part of our conversation?
You get a feeling that he's somewhere in the vents.
Oh, that's right. Fence.
But is he actually in the bunk room or is he somewhere else?
We're gonna not complete retcon it. He's in the vents above the bunk room.
Yeah, that's what Ellen is trying to hint at.
That way we can say I wasn't completely wrong.
Near enough that it seems like he's in there. Or something like that.
Okay. Well, so then Shia gets sort of a puzzled look on his face. And then he says,
Well, I guess rather he's sort of seeming to be above the bunk room. So perhaps he's crawling around in the vents somewhere.
Would he know enough to know about vents, or would he just think I'm in space?
Well, not quite outside the ship. This. Anyway.
With Star Wars, everyone has some familiarity with how ships work.
Yeah, I know. I just had to say it.
I mean, yeah.
Yeah, and he got a better role for the technology than I did by a good bit. So anyway.
yeah, you're just gonna walk into the bunk room.
Hey, Picaz, if you can hear me, we're trying to plan strategy, so your mechanical expertise might come in handy if you wanted to help us plan, so we don't all die. That'd be great.
And then he turns around and walks back out.
You get no response.
Oh dear.
Well,
I telepathically ask him to come here.
No response.
he's hitting the snooze button.
All right, so planning. Once we get on the ship, what are we doing? What's the plan? The entire crew. Unless we could somehow disable life support or sabotage the ship in some way.
Well, that part y'all would have to talk with Picaz
Connie
about.
will look pretty aghast at that suggestion of the life support.
Well, we need something to draw attention away from what we're doing. Otherwise, we'll never get close.
Set a delayed explosive near Midbay, maybe? Wherever we're closest at?
The explosive in the med bay?
Again, same sort
You
of
asked for a
reaction.
Charlie was like
distraction.
glaring
What?
at you.
Yeah, ask
Well,
for a
it depends.
distraction.
Going near their engines would probably be a better bet, because then not only do we draw attention away from ourselves, but we also limit their mobility, and the rest of the fleet may hang back while they repair.
Well,
Yes,
that's true.
that also, yeah, prevent them from reaching the colony.
So ideally, if we could get into the engine room right off the bat and sabotage something, preferably while we're not around, then we draw attention to them trying to fix it and maybe hide out for a while and make our move when the Admiral enters his quarters or something, instead of attacking him on the bridge.
So I'm not that familiar with space combat, but it seems to me to be doubtful that if we don't board the ship until after they've already exited hyperspace near the planet, that we'd have time to go to the engine room, and then get to the bridge, and then stop the Admiral before the fleet can attack the planet. And furthermore, will attacking a single Admiral even stop the rest of the fleet from attacking the planet?
We need to get him to call off the attack. We can't just flat out shoot him. If it's above the planet, yeah, that will do no good. The other possibility would be to somehow acquire control of the weapon systems and start firing on the other ships. Send out some sort of beacon to warn the Republic. Backup options, basically.
The governor already told us that the nearest Republic ship is too far away to help.
So we either, for low casualty, we either distract and then convince, one way or another, the Admiral to call off the attack, or we go with the slightly higher version or a slightly higher casualty version and commandeer the weapon systems.
And what if the Admiral refuses to call off the attack?
We hold him hostage, get onto the bridge, and then take control of the weapon systems.
Either way, there'll be high casualties when we take control of the weapon systems. So,
Yeah,
Do
it's
you
not
have
casualties
enough
I'm concerned
technical-
about. It's about getting off the ship. That's the most concerning part for me.
getting off wouldn't be too hard. It's convincing the Admiral to stop the attack is what I'm more concerned about. Because as far as I can tell, our two Jedi, or Force users, shall I say, probably will not like high casualty option B. That requires destroying the rest of the fleet.
That's why it's option B. Although an opportunity to destroy a massive amount of the Sith fleet would not be a bad idea.
The Republic will look very kindly on that.
How would we destroy the rest of the fleet?
That is where their weapon systems on their ship would come in handy, but also the element of surprise. An attack from your leading ship is not exactly something you are expecting.
Well, they might have time to alert the other ships as to our presence on board the capital ship before we reach the bridge.
So then, full tactical stealth until we get to the Admiral's location. That might be a little slower than you think, but we can do it if need be.
Assuming that the gambler can get us on board without raising any alerts.
And
For
then
that,
we can get around unnoticed. We're
Yeah.
not exactly the most normal group.
Aelin will look at Kalani there and just kind of size her up.
It's at this point that you hear the sliding of the bridge door, and Dakaya and Ramai step out, and they come up and see you all plotting, and uh, Dakaya comes and sits next to you, Kalani. But as Ramai remains standing and puts his hands down on the table. So scheming and plotting. All right, where are we at, guys?
Would you believe me if I told you we're already trying to decide if we're going to kill the dude or not?
Of course. It sounds exactly like something Republics would have dilemma over.
Well,
Nah, it's more how do we stop the rest of the fleet?
Do you know how many ships compose this fleet?
Well, not including small fighters, med ships, and general sort of small non-combative vehicles. We're talking probably 12 to 15 capital ships.
Sounds about right. I
Yipes.
was going to say about 10 to 20. It would sound right. It's a fleet, after all.
It's
Now, are we
definitely a
going?
smaller. I was just gonna say it's a smaller fleet than the one Revan's been toting around, but it's a significant force.
So when they come out of hyperspace, where will they be in location? Will they be above the planet, or will they still need to make another jump before then?
That's the question I haven't quite figured out yet. If all things are looking up for us, they'll need to make a final stop for refueling and such before they reach a planet. But if your luck holds out, they'll be right on top of the planet by the time they get out. Now, just getting out of hyperspace doesn't mean that they can just turn on the batteries and start firing. It'll probably be about 2 hours before they're fully prepped and ready to fire. But 2 hours is a short amount of time to get aboard a ship, get out, find the admiral, destroy him, or whatever it is you're planning on doing, and then stop an entire fleet.
well, the thing is, even if we killed him, will that stop the fleet once it's already there?
This time it's Dakaya who speaks up. That depends on how you defeat him. If you do something sneaky, for instance, assassinate him, that may be more difficult. Either you'd have to impersonate him in some way to convince the fleet to surrender and move on, or you run the risk of his body being found, and likely they'll attack you. But if you challenge him in some way, perhaps open combat or decimate his bridge, that may cause trouble. It truly does depend on how you decide to handle this. If you were a Sith, for instance, merely killing him and taking command would be enough. The other soldiers would have no choice but to follow your lead. If you show yourselves to be Republic soldiers, they'll just see it as an attack and continue on. In which case, you'll have to try your best to get them to fight or shoot each other. I'm not exactly sure how you'll accomplish that. You'll have to be very careful at how you make a very surgical strike into this force.
You all just see Shayalu like staring around, and then he just like puts his head in his hands. Then he says,
How did we find ourselves in this situation?
I don't know.
Well, we did want to stop them from bombing the planet, which I agree with, but how we go about stopping them is another story. I'm all for ending his life as quickly as possible, particularly if we can do it in an open show that will make his soldier stand down. But if need be, we can do whatever we need, deception and so forth, if we need to do so.
If we made open contact and challenged him, I'm assuming he would not accept that sort of challenge like a Mandalorian would.
No, of course not. He's not that honorable. If you could convince him you were a Sith, he'd either have no choice but to follow you or die.
Didn't this whole situation come about because of the failed attack on Telos and the displeasure of the Sith leaders with this admiral? So anything we do is going to have to be weighed up against the fleet's fear of failing the Sith again and not coming through on this mission.
Yes, and that's
Well-
why I'm afraid that it's unlikely that we'll be able to convince him, as much as I'd prefer that.
I mean, it was the Admiral's failing in his motivation, which is sending this entire fleet over here. I'm pretty sure the rest of the Sith wouldn't mind not sending a fleet of 12 capital ships to destroy a puny colony.
Well, the problem is that they already sent the ships. So even if we stop the Admiral, the ships might as well just decide that since they took the effort of flying all the way out there, they might as well just destroy the colony.
Well, that's, yeah, if they don't have to make a refueling stop, and we can somehow sabotage the ship and give us enough time to kill the Admiral before then, it looks like the impersonating taking control of the ship might be, well, the safest bet. And then that whole weapon systems firing on each other kind of thing after that as a backup plan. How we're going to impersonate Sith is, well, that's another problem in and of itself.
Above your heads, you hear a metal sound. Pakaz drops down out of a vent.
Oh, there you are.
Pakaz.
Well, hello, little
So, any
one.
thoughts? Any thoughts on the plan thus far? If you've heard any of it, more of a stream of ideas really than a plan. But
Well, my initial thoughts in this were, before we got this far, were I would have thought that Takaya would like to challenge him and take over, and that we could help with that.
Jakaya shifts in her seat at the suggestion. I am not certain that plan will work. The Admiral knows my face. He knows who his scout is.
But you're a Sith. If you challenge him and take his power from him, isn't that your philosophy?
True, but I am a Sith of the Old Order. I'm already on thin ice as it is. My task was to prove myself.
Do his superiors really care about what he's doing right now? If you do a competent job and you take over his position, what does it matter to them? Especially if you're better than him. Again, isn't power what they value, what you value?
Yes, of course. And you are right, they do not care about this colony. He is likely on another mission, and this is just a stop. But don't be so foolish as to think that I would be the only force sensitive aboard that ship or in the fleet. Revan has mixed Sith and soldier together. My simply challenging him wouldn't be enough. I'd have to fend off other Sith who would decide that, for whatever reason, they would be better than me.
Well, no, that's not to say we just challenge him. We find him and then challenge him in front of others. We sneak onto the ship.
But even if I was to do so, how would I disguise the fact that I am traveling with a Jedi, a former Republic soldier, and a Mandalorian?
Well, that again brings up the point of how on Earth we were supposed to impersonate Sith to begin with in this idea strand. It doesn't seem feasible.
Why would they need to know anything about us?
Because if we're not Sith, they'll perceive it as an attack rather than a challenge, and they'll continue regardless. We won't gain any authority over the ships.
Yes, but again, how would they know that we're not just some random people who are her friends under her authority? Or under her authority at the very least.
It's at this point that Ramai starts to chuckle. Anyone who knows Takaya knows she doesn't have lackeys, for one. But the other,
She didn't.
Shorty, you're a bit of an enigma. There aren't any, well, you creatures on Korriban. Or the Jedi. No offense, ma'am, but you both are strange.
My idea is not going to go well. Oh, great.
What are you up to?
Aelin doesn't look up from his hands, but just kind of has his head down in his hands, kind of breathing deeply. It all depends on how you go about things. It depends on how you assert your authority over certain personalities. I'm sorry, lads. My capabilities to impersonate as many Imperials as I can has waned over the few years that I've been traveling. It's was quite a handy tool when I worked at Nar Shaddaa, but now I just don't have the accent for it.
So looks like our most feasible option would be either to force him to call off the fleet or to get the fleet to fire on each other.
Neither of those seem very likely to succeed.
Yet we're in a cargo ship going up against an entire Imperial fleet. There's not going to be an option that seems very likely to succeed.
Well, even if we take over the weapon systems of one capital ship, how is that going to stand up and destroy 14 others?
We could probably take out 2, maybe 3 before they took us out. Just based on the fact that if we took control of their weapons, we could get a surprise attack on at least 1, maybe 2. But then that's about it.
I could shut down one ship.
What do you mean?
Well, if their reactor isn't providing power, then one ship wouldn't work. But that is all. But that would require me to be on the ship. And probably right next to the reactor.
Picos, do you still have that voice recorder?
Because cocks his head. I believe so.
What if we confront him, take him hostage, but get him talking long enough to be able to piece together an intercom message that we can send to the rest of the fleet? So it seems like he's giving an order when really we've taken over their bridge. Or we don't even have to take to the bridge, we can distribute it from their captain's quarters. Maybe an order to continue on and forget the planet and continue on with the rest of the mission.
An easier way might be my plan, except me and Kalani, the ones who stand out, infiltrate stealthily.
What was the rest of your plan?
Sneak Dakaya and the party onto the ridge, or wherever he happens to be, and challenge him. And have Dakaya take over.
I feel like we covered why that's a bad idea. Right, Takaya? We covered that? I'm not missing
And
something.
I posed a reason as to how to make it work. We just remove me and Kalani.
I'll help in any way that I can. My only concern is that my authority is not as it once was.
And if we defeat the people who are on the bridge with him and who would reject your authority, then what is the problem? Would they not obey Sith custom?
I'll tell you what I told her when she returned. When I realized that she had left for Thela, I dug in. I wanted to know why she'd be sent to some backward planet. I realized very quickly that it was a suicide mission. She was sent there with no ship to return and no way for her to feasibly get back home without some dangerous exploit on her own. You're right. Typically, they would fall in line, but there's already been doubts as to her loyalty. I think if she challenges him and then orders him not to attack the one place that she was sent to prove herself, it may look like sympathizing with the enemy.
What do you think of that recording transmission idea? Would he have some sort of code phrase they would put on all his transmissions to verify that it was him, or do they not do that sort of verification?
Typically, the verification comes from the ship before it's transmitted. The only problem you'll have is Sith are an inquisitive bunch. They have to give some order like that. You're going to have to deal with whoever comes into the room next, questioning about orders, and why all of a sudden their admiral seems to have a heart. It could work, just going to be some difficulties in convincing them.
Well, I think that might be a better option and more likely to succeed than trying to convince the Admiral to give the order to the fleet.
Well, I mean, we can approach the subject with him, and it might give us some of the phrases we need. And if he's uncooperative, then we can take matters into our own hands, and we keep him alive so that if persuading them in that manner fails, we take him to the bridge and challenge him to combat, take him out there, and then try that plan. So we have 3 options if we go that route.
I wonder if actually the fact that he sent Takaya on such a suicide mission may actually be grounds to challenge him.
It would give her an excuse as to why she's come to challenge him.
I had not thought of that.
We could use that approach. I do also still have your datapad, Lass, if you would like to edit it, maybe for any particular additional info that might help you.
Such as?
I'm not sure. Maybe a little bit more added to your list. Maybe details of comprehensive strikes you've made, quote unquote.
I could make it seem that I was more helpful than I was.
You could also put on there the beginnings of a plan, perhaps maybe one that you thought of to maybe get off the planet back to report to everyone else. Perhaps putting in a footnote saying that you'll shelve this idea until further option approaches itself.
Perhaps. But what would I do when he questions how I returned? And what of his question afterwards of why I choose not to finish the job?
What does any of that matter? The job he gave you was unimportant in the first place and didn't matter at all. And he was demeaning you by putting you out on that job just to get you killed. So now you're going to go and take his place. And then you kill him.
I will help in any way I can. I have said my reservations about this plan. If you feel it is the best option, I will do what I can.
I think it's the third best option, and if we approach the other plans first, we might still be able to obtain that as a semi-last resort, and the last resort after that being getting the ships to try and fire on each other.
Well, I would say the stealthy stuff is probably the things we should try first. Like hacking one of the ships and making it fire on another one. Like maybe hack a secondary ship and make it fire on the capital. Or the flagship.
But then if that doesn't work, we won't have any way of getting to the flagship.
Well, obviously we would have to leave. This might require multiple teams. Because if only one ship fires, then all the other ships will turn on it and destroy it.
I mean, that will buy us time, but it won't solve anything. They might just destroy it and continue with the mission. So I think that firing on each other is kind of a last resort.
I don't think that the Sith are so disorganized that a couple ships firing at a different ship are going to cause the entire ship fleet to just start firing with abandon at each other and destroy themselves.
The only option that I see at all working would be to have Nakai replace the leadership if we are not split up and to each work on a separate ship.
I like Ajax's plan better than that.
Of course, if we try the order giving thing, we can't sabotage the ship beforehand because it will seem suspicious. If we make the ship look obviously sabotaged, like causes an engine to explode, and they figure out that it was an explosive and not a malfunction, then they would automatically be suspicious of any order.
Recording his voice and patching it together in a way that doesn't sound awkward is kind of absurd in and of itself. It's so you have to be insanely skilled to make it sound not weird. And then you would have to explain the issue of an order that makes no sense coming from him.
Since we're talking about getting giving orders and things. I don't know. I don't know. We probably can't do it because we don't have the recordings. But if we could make it seem like some of his superiors were giving him an order to immediately go somewhere else urgently or something on some other mission. Send them off.
That would only
Send
that
send
would
them off
delay things and
on
enable
some wild chase.
all that would allow for
Regardless of
is a chance
anything,
for them to escape the planet. They would come
regardless of
back.
anything, the admiral needs to be removed because he will continue to want to destroy the colony to restore his sense of non-failing. So, no matter what measures we take, the admiral has to be eliminated or taken prisoner.
With such a small group, either my plan or some way to hack into and take control of some of the ships and cause issues or destroy the fleet seem to be the only ways that look at all possible feasible to me with such a small group of people.
Yes, I like Kalani's suggestion, but I don't think that we are capable of pulling that off.
We would need to know who, and we'd need to have recordings of the person or some way to fake an order from him or her. All the other plans are much more complicated and just there's a lot more room for failure.
Let's be honest. There's always a lot of room for failure with plans like this, even yours.
Yes, but the more complicated you make it, the more points at which the plan can fail.
One other option would be if we did have two teams, one team on a secondary ship, one team on the flagship, get enough to impersonate him saying that there were traitors on board many of the ships and broadcast that to the other ships and get the secondary ship to begin firing on the capital ship just after the message is sent. It might be able to pit even numbers of the fleet against each other.
If you could get me onto one ship alone, I could send one ship on a collision course with another ship and then cut its power. Or just cut the power of a single ship.
But sending on a collision course doesn't really look like it in a mutiny or rebellion of any sort.
Yes, but it would remove one ship from the equation should things not work out the way we want it to.
But if one ship just starts firing on the flagship, all the other ships will just shoot at it.
Oh, who said anything? I wasn't talking about making a ship fire.
No, that's why we have a recording. We get a recording of the admiral. We splice together something telling half of the ships that there are traitors and mutineers, like people trying to take over the fleet on the other ships.
I really
and
think
one
you
of those ships
should put aside this idea of recording his voice and patching together some sort of order from him. There are too many points at where that could fail. Aside from the fact that they'd be unlike, well, yes, they might believe traitors. That is a more believable one.
And if they begin an attack immediately afterwards, they may not process that it seems strange.
But that makes it really hard to do any of the other plans. It makes the plan of challenging him outright impossible if we just capture him. We'd have to confront him in front of other Sith rather than sneakily capture him.
Well, sounds like you all still have plenty of ideas. So let's try and recap and bring this in a little. One idea is to go in and have Takaya challenge for authority, which it might happen, might not. Two, going in and convincing this admiral to say the magic words and patching that together in order to make some sort of traitorous plot ploy, and then immediately shoot the heck out of each other and hope that that's enough to convince them to go home. And three, convince him to suddenly learn the error of his ways.
Or 4, stealthily sabotage all of the ships and destroy them.
Yeah,
All the
in the
ships?
time span, we're probably not going to have time to be able to do that.
And while the gambler may be able to sneak us on board one ship, I don't think he'll be able to sneak us back and forth between every ship in the fleet without causing some notice.
The trick I have up my sleeve will allow me to get onto one ship free and clear. After that, well, now we're just betting on aces.
What if I cut the power to the flagship? They'll have to wait for it. They'll have to do something about it. The entire reactor needs to be replaced.
That could buy you 4 hours.
Zariana, could I make a roll to see how much I would know about capital ship reactors?
Sure, go ahead.
I'm assuming technology.
Yeah.
So, what I'm looking to know is if I disabled the reactor by sucking all the energy out of it and making it unable to operate, what exactly, how replacing that, long would that take?
You're only judging, you don't know exactly the type of ship you're going up against, but knowing the capital ships used by the public, you do know that generally they have like 2 or 3 reactors operating, or what in this case hyperdrives being utilized at once. However, they always have several backups, between 5 and 9 backup systems that kick in. Now, dependent, the fluctuation on how those systems get back up depends on the efficiency of the crew and how long it takes for those programs to reboot and utilize the new hyperdrives. So the gambler's prediction of about 4 to 5 hours is pretty spot on.
If I can make it to each of the reactors, I could make them all inoperable.